I'm Shari Sevens. I'm a Bardi Jabba Jabba woman, and I'm a Darwin girl born and bred on Larrakia country. I am so proud and honoured to be standing here on this land, marking the 30-year anniversary of Danila Dilba Health Service.
I'm Rob Collins, like Shari. I'm Darwin born and bred, but via the Tiwi Islands. And we'd just like to say congratulations to Danila Dilba on reaching this remarkable milestone. I would also like to acknowledge that we are on Larrakia country and acknowledge all Larrakia people in the room, as well as all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here tonight. We'd like to invite Janine McLennan to the stage to welcome us to country on behalf of her family and Larrakia Nation.
I've been invited this evening to welcome you to this very special gathering, Danila Dilba Health Service 30th anniversary. On behalf of our Larrakia ancestors, elders and families, Bachi, Bachi, Bachi. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our beautiful Darwin, the saltwater people country. I'd like to acknowledge the past of Danila Dilba Health Service, from past board members, past clients, and past employees who have helped make Danila Dilba Health Service the peak Aboriginal health service for Darwin for those 30 years.
Thank you very, very much, Janine, for your welcome. We are so honoured to have lived and grown up on Larrakia country. We acknowledge all founding members, current and previous board members, current and previous staff, and everyone who has had a hand in building Danila Dilba to be what it is today.
Also, you'll notice cameras in the room. First Nations Broadcasting has gone to great lengths to support the event this evening, from the videos you'll see later to filming the entire event. So thank you for your incredible support, and everyone look for Fox, Rachel and Royce if you want to get on camera. Please go and chat to the First Nations Broadcasting team should you have any memories of Danila Dilba or things you would like to share. To begin our keynote speeches, please welcome to the stage Danila Dilba's CEO, Rob McPhee, and Carol Stanislaus, chairperson.
It's so special to be an incoming CEO and being able to bring all us together tonight to acknowledge the monumental occasion that is 3 decades of Danila Dilba Health Service. I'd also like to acknowledge all of the previous CEOs, the board directors, founding members and staff that have come before me and built this organisation into the strong, robust, considered and effective health service that it is today. I am honoured to be standing here tonight as the new CEO for Danila Dilba, and while it's only been 3 months for me, I have already gained enormous respect for the role that I hold and great admiration for the amazing work that this organisation does. I have the great pleasure of leading this incredible organisation into its next phase, continuing to provide high quality primary health care to the people of Darwin and surrounding regions. I stand in this position because of fierce leaders, advocates and generations of hard work and dedication from so many people, many who are in this room tonight, many who have not been able to attend tonight, and many who sadly have passed. 30 years is a tremendous feat, especially for a community-controlled health organisation, and one that I do not take on lightly. I'd like to thank everyone here tonight who has contributed in the legacy that we all know, and I will take care of this legacy and lead it into its next stage of growth and development. Being situated in the most northern city in the country comes with other challenges as well. Challenges like chronic disease, which is more prevalent now than any other time in our history. Youth detention, which sadly follows a similar trajectory. Funding is also an ongoing challenge for us as an organisation, and that we know that if we were funded based on the health needs of our community in Darwin, we'd be receiving double, if not triple, the amount of funding to service those needs. The need for services like ours to exist are obvious and crucial, yet we face some serious adversity in reaching our ever-growing demand from clients and health needs. We exist in a space where we're still needed to prove our worth. We need to be better and different from the rest, and we are. Danila Dilba is especially different because we provide primary health care in a culturally appropriate and safe way to a community that deserves that care. We're not classed as a remote health service, yet many of our mob we see day in and day out come from outlying regions. We understand this and we work around this, but it shouldn't be the case that we're not recognised for it. We take on the task and we're good at what we do, and I'd like to acknowledge all of our staff who make this possible every single day. I'm preaching to the converted, I know, all of you here tonight, when I say that there is an absolute need for organisations like Danila Dilba to exist. I'm so proud to be leading an organisation with such an incredible legacy and hope that I can make a difference when we mark our next milestone. In closing, I'd like to acknowledge Olga Havnen and her fierce leadership of this organisation. Her work and dedication to Danila Dilba was unwavering and saw the organisation through some pretty tough times.
It's been my great pleasure to have been on the Danila Dilba board since 2016, so not as long as Mum Janine, but yeah, 5-6 years now, and chairperson for the last 3 years. We are a resilient organisation. We remain diligent and committed in the face of everything that is thrown at us. Our people fought for this organisation to exist, and here we are, 30 years later. Congratulations to everyone who has helped Danila Dilba, who has helped build Danila Dilba to what it is today. There's a lot of you in this room, so I thank you very much. Can I get a round of applause for that? Now, as chairperson on behalf of the board, I'd like to formally acknowledge our former CEO, Olga Havnen. Olga finished up this year after being CEO for close to 8 years. She led the organisation through incredible growth, up against some serious challenges. Olga ensured that we rallied together to fight the good fight. Her commitment and dedication to this space was second to none. There are so many achievements Olga reached in her time as CEO that her mother, Peg Havnen, one of the founding members of DD, is immensely proud of, as we all are. Thank you, Olga, for your fearless leadership, your strength, kindness and tenacity. I'd actually like to introduce the next presentation, a video of reflection of how it all started. I'd like to acknowledge all the people in this video, some of whom are with us in the room tonight. I'd also like to acknowledge that there are some who have passed, and I've received permission from their families to show the video.
My earliest time with Danila Dilba started in the late 70s, really, and I was working as a field officer in DAA, and the concept arrived when I was a field officer at DAA about the need to have our own medical service, which was, being established around Australia, and particularly Sydney, that had a model. It was a great concept of what I saw in Redfern.
In 1974, when Cyclone Tracy hit Darwin, a lot of Darwin Aboriginal people, like everybody else, were evacuated, and a lot of our mob went to Adelaide, and I think some to Congress, some to Alice Springs, and they were met there by the local AMS, the Aboriginal Medical Service in Adelaide, and Central Australian Aboriginal Congress in Alice Springs. So people were impressed with the services and the support and assistance they got from those Aboriginal organisations. So as when Darwin people came home, they thought, how come we haven't got our own Aboriginal medical service?
Actually, Redfern was quite a centre for Aboriginal people coming in from rural areas, and they particularly congregated in Redfern. And the situation with regard to services was similar to what was happening up here, or not happening. And then after that, things like, the health services, the legal services, these were set up to answer the needs of discrimination, legal services to deal with what they perceived as police harassment. And, it was a hive of activity down there, setting up black theatre, there's a dance company, all sorts of wonderful things flowed from that time.
During the 70s, and during that period, there was a whole lot of activism that was happening, not only here in Australia, but across the world.
We're very involved people. They called us the ever-readies. anybody can go down to Sydney tomorrow or whatever, yeah, who can go, this way. And it was like that. We were called the Evereadys.
So there's a whole lot of things that were happening in the world, and Aboriginal people here in Australia were listening and being influenced by this, and of course eventually it got to little old Darwin.
For a long, long time there were a number of us that wanted to have our own community control medical services because of the obvious reasons where we were going to the hospital and we felt that we weren't getting that type of service that we should have been getting because of cultural reasons and that sort of stuff. And I guess in a lot of cases, a lot of our mob weren't going to the hospital or seeking doctors. People tend to refer to it as shame, people for a whole range of things, but I don't think it was shame, it was just they didn't know the people. And obviously we provide a much more friendlier place, and that's from what we learnt from other community controlled health services, because we did start a fair bit behind, but that's what it was. And just having that setting where people felt comfortable and felt that they were going to get a good service.
We want the money to come directly to Aboriginal community controlled services so that we can get on and do the job that we're best at. We've got the track record and we've done it.
Well, we wanted to revisit the concept, and I did that with the late Sally Ross, who was from Alice Springs, but she worked as a health worker in the Katherine region, and I knew the population here in the Darwin region, and so we chose to set up a committee, a board of people who would be able to, direct and look at establishing such a service.
It was a really long battle, and people did petitions, they lobbied, they complained, they spoke to everybody, they had interminable meetings, community meetings. So it just went on, and that's what I describe about this energy and support that Danila Dilba had. It was unwavering.
It was J. Ross. It was her that saw me working, and she said, I want you to be the first Aboriginal health worker to be trained at Danila Dilba Medical Centre. I said, what's an Aboriginal health worker? She said, they're like a doctor, a nurse. It was a new area for me as I was never educated. We had to be cleaners like your grandmother knows. And I went in there and I thought, oh wow, what's happening here? And I got introduced to the two doctors, Dr. Torres and Dr. Fiona McDonald, who trained me. And that was the beginning of a very long journey. I worked right up to my retirement age in remote communities all over the Northern Territory, right up the centre, Barkly region where I'm from, and lived in Darwin all my life as a stolen gen, but I went home and helped my people. I wanted to do that, work out in the remote communities to learn hands-on. And because J. Ross, she said to me, when you go out there, you're going to learn to make bush medicine, get your culture back. And that's what I have been doing for the past 20 years. I just love being out there in the bush, in no man's land, with my ambulance, working with the Royal Flying Doctor Service, And as years went by, there was no one else more important, because that's when I found my mother out there at Alikarang. And I worked there. I worked amongst my own brothers and sisters that I never knew I had. And, so she gave me a life, J. Ross. She gave me a beautiful life. And I had got the culture back, my own culture, being in an institution all those years, you know, from a 3-month-old baby until I was 17, well, I wasn't allowed to have a nice office job. It had to be a cleaning job, and that's what I did until that beautiful lady, Kumanjay Ross, people know her as Sally Ross, and she was the CEO, beautiful. She encouraged me so much. This is a badge I got when I graduated at Bachelor, to be registered and to practice clinical work wherever, hospital, which I did. And it was my graduation recognition. I will never forget the beautiful people. And she encouraged me so much. I ended up a graduate at the University of Sydney.
What a beautiful and solid foundation, and it's always lovely to, know our history, to know where we're going, eh? The strength of this organisation today and its footprint across the Darwin and Palmerston regions are a testament to the tenacity and vision of not only the founding members, but everyone involved in the working groups in the early days. Everyone who marched and added their voices to a call for better services for our people. What an honour it is to mark 30 years with all of you here.
Absolutely. For an organisation like Danila Dilba to exist this long throughout so many challenges and challenging years and adversity just shows the power and drive of our people. One such person led Danila Dilba as CEO for over 7 years, growing it to what we see today. A robust, adaptive primary healthcare service spread across Larrakia country in 9 clinics, making it easily accessible for our mob. Not only did they expand the clinics, improve the services and build the organisation enough to be responsive and agile in the face of the pandemic, but had a huge presence and impact advocating for our mob, particularly in youth justice and the public health space. This person is, of course, Olga Havnen. Unfortunately, Olga couldn't be here tonight, but she has left a message that she would like to share as this year's outgoing CEO.
It's been an absolute privilege to work with everybody at Danila Dilba over the last 7 to 8 years. I've really been impressed by the enormous commitment and drive and integrity that so many of our staff have shown. I can't tell you how many times I've been stopped in the street by people who say to me, literally, if it hadn't been for Danila Dilba, my mother or my father or my siblings would not be here today. So I just want everyone to feel that real sense of pride about what you do. I mean, clearly you don't come to work just because it's a job, and you come to work at Danila Dilba because it's an Aboriginal organisation. It's very important, I think, that people think about the future of Danila Dilba and where it's going, and to remember the incredible importance it is to have community-controlled organisations. The health sector is probably one of the last standing groups of Aboriginal organisations across the country. And I don't think we can take that for granted. The competition out there is fierce, and I have no doubt. The competition for Aboriginal dollars is equally fierce. So we need to make sure that Danila Dilba and other health services continue to be the best possible organisations that we can be, that we're strong, viable, accountable and transparent. But most importantly, never forget why we're here and what we're here to do. In thinking about what we've achieved over the last few years, there are probably some real standout moments, probably in the advocacy area as much as anything, and certainly for having the backing of the board and the chair to be able to do the work that we did around the Royal Commission into Youth Detention, to provide those submissions and to participate in that whole process. I mean, I find it very distressing at the moment to see how far backwards we seem to be going. We've now got something like 60 odd kids in Dondale as I speak, one of which is a 10-year-old. This is completely and utterly unacceptable. And it really rests on Aboriginal organisations to raise these issues with government. It may not make us popular, but who cares? We're not there for government. We're here for our own people and to speak up when things are not right. So, you know, be courageous, be strong, do that advocacy work and continue to provide the best possible care you can for the people that walk through our doors every single day. Love you all and see you.
Please keep that round of applause going as we welcome our next speaker, the Honourable Minister for Health, Ms. Natasha Files.
And I too acknowledge the Larrakia people and pay my respects to Elders past, present and emerging, as well as other Aboriginal people here tonight. It's wonderful to come together and celebrate such a unique organisation. I too would also like to acknowledge Olga and her service to Danila Dilba and to health in the Northern Territory. It is wonderful to be able to come together and look back at that history prior to 1991 when the organisation and the service was formed and understand its foundations. From one clinic with 7 staff to 9 clinics with over 200 staff. Danila Dilba is a part of the rich cultural tapestry of Darwin. I was the Health Minister when you celebrated your 25th birthday, and it's a real honour to still be the Health Minister and help you celebrate your 30th. We as a government believe in Aboriginal community-controlled health services. Local decision-making and pathway to community controls is what our government is about. Each year we have seen the transition of more NT government health services to Aboriginal-controlled organisations right across the Northern Territory. And almost half of all Northern Territory primary healthcare services are now managed by Aboriginal community-controlled organisations. And that is so important because they know what healthcare their community and their people need. It helps us keep people out of being acutely unwell and ending up in hospital, and it provides that wraparound care that we've heard about this evening. Danila Dilba plays a significant role in the provision of health services to not only the Aboriginal people of Darwin and Larrakia country, with over 9,500 regular clients, but it also provides healthcare to those who might be visiting, and we know Darwin is a service hub for the top end. It stops people from getting severely unwell and having to go to hospital. The interconnectedness of the health system and that partnership and that collaboration is so important, and as a government and as the Minister for Health, we're striving to achieve more in the cultural way we deliver healthcare in the Territory. Collaboration has now resulted in Danila Dilba providing comprehensive primary health services to the young people in Dondale Youth Detention Centre. This is the first time an Aboriginal community-controlled health organisation has delivered that service, and it is so important because it can provide the continuation of care and support young people in the community. And it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge Rob and the Danila Dilba's team's significant role through the COVID-19 response. Danila Dilba has saved lives during this pandemic. The significant mobile vaccination work, as well as the vaccination at your clinics, as we heard, over 12,000 vaccinations delivered. And their response in the Darwin outbreaks has been nothing short of astounding. So thank you for your support during a particularly difficult time. Danila Dilba has had a significant say and influence on the broader health and wellbeing agenda, and I thank you for your incredible advocacy and work you do each and every day. To everybody here tonight, to those board members and to the supporters, thank you. It's a celebration this evening, so I look forward to celebrating with you and all the efforts over the past 30 years. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Dr. Fiona McDonald, and I cannot wait to hear from the longest-serving doctor in Danila Dilba's 30 years, an actual day one.
That is dedication. Like a rock star. Dr. Fiona McDonald has been with Danila Dilba for 3 decades and continues to work there as a GP. Since Danila Dilba opened its doors, Dr. Fiona has seen generations come through its clinics. I think I was there, number 11's, tropical air. Through its clinics, and remembers early conversations about the environment Danila Dilba was formed and developed in and what it became today. From its time where there was no community-controlled health organisation for our people to a time when there are 9 clinics and you can access culturally appropriate primary healthcare services.
I wish to acknowledge the great privilege of working with the First Nations people of Australia as part of this community-owned and controlled organisation. We thank Aboriginal people for sharing and caring for the land we live and work on. We pay respects to elders and share our friendship and kindness. Thank you for asking me to speak tonight. It's given me a lovely opportunity to reflect back on the last 30 years and all the growth and changes that have occurred. I saw a lady at Bagot the other day. It was her first time using Danila Dilba. She was from Bush. Despite the best efforts of the excellent AHP I was working with and myself, she met our attempts to engage her and involve her in her own management of her own health with mistrust and suspicion. This is now remarkable. It used to be common. We were unknown, and due to both racism and internalised racism, many were apprehensive about how an Indigenous-controlled organisation could actually work. People now know how well it can be done. The communities with control of their own health services and their own health messaging have done so much better than others. I wish now to read an abridged version of a speech that I wrote in 2004, the Sally Ross oration for the graduation of our own AHPs at the time. Sally Ross was such a wonderful individual. I personally learnt so much from her about Indigenous people, Indigenous organisations, Indigenous culture, and the whole Indigenous world. Her warmth, her compassion, her strength, her stubbornness, her charm are the stuff of legend. She established 4 Aboriginal health services, Pintuby Homelands at Kintore, Anningi Congress in Tennant Creek, Whirly Whirlinjang in Katherine, and finally Danila Dilba here in Darwin. I count myself lucky to have worked with her in the first 4 years of Danila Dilba until her untimely death 10 years ago this year. Unfortunately, like too many Indigenous people in this country, she was taken away too young. There was so much more that she would have achieved if she had the opportunity, and too many people left to grieve her untimely passing. By the time that Danila Dilba was a few months old and employed 8 staff, it was already one of the biggest Indigenous organisations in Darwin. The history of the establishment of Danila Dilba Health Services and of all Aboriginal health services is inspiring stuff against all odds. I wish Sally were here to tell her story. When I first started, however, that battle had been won. Danila Dilba existed. We'd been lent a little house in McLaughlin Street, for which we were later granted a peppercorn in perpetuity lease. I vividly remember my first day. There was nothing in the house, only Sally and Maxine Storer and 1 desk, 1 phone and copies of the National Aboriginal Health Strategy. These were placed in the central room. For those who know the building, people were still trying to clean up the unused for a while house around us. I remember Sally and Maxine's wonderful stories, my first introduction to the joys of Indigenous storytelling. Sally suggested I read the National Aboriginal Health Strategy. It was such a well-researched, well-written document whose recommendations were unfortunately never implemented, a part of the ongoing story of governments refusing to honour their commitments to Indigenous people. I can also remember my sense of bewilderment when I first started. I'd never expected to set up a clinic from scratch. It was a new experience with minimal guidance, though people were generally very supportive. Back then we had a lot of time. It was a tight team. Sally Ross, John Robinson, David Thomas, myself, Maxine Storer, Ngungara Matt, Sally knew the importance of transport, Josephine Bringen, our first registered AHW, and Marjorie Winfill, our first Aboriginal health worker trainee. Marjorie is here. A few months later, we took over the management of Bagot Clinic. I began to work with Linda Bunn, Margaret Byrne, Priscilla Tipperclipper, Gwenda Lawton and Annie Moffat. Bagot Clinic was the totally decrepit World War II hospital. It was falling down with broken and cracked asbestos, broken louvers and an open treatment area with no privacy. We picked up the mobile service along with Bagot Clinic. This was a whole new experience which included visiting the town camps. Many of these are still a disgrace. They were worse 14 years ago. The doctors worked partly there and in the new Danila Dilba Clinic, which was bought with renal money from Tiwi and Yiliriang ATSIC regional councils. Protesting outside the ATSIC building, led by Pat Anderson, when we thought that Danila Dilba would lose its funding, was another highlight. We didn't lose our funding, and Indigenous health money was then given back to the Commonwealth Health Department. They were all such magical experiences. Especially in the early days, people were so happy that Danila Dilba existed. I was always being told by clients that they felt they'd never been treated well in the health system previously and that they had never had access to good quality medical care before. Now I believe we're the victims of our own success. Clients expect good care and they become upset if they perceive it as less than perfect in any way. In some areas, and this was written 15 years ago, the need for Danila Dilba Health Service is increasing. Mental health, substance abuse, suicide, violence and the worsening of employment and education opportunities. This is also related to the harsh outside political climate, which doesn't value people and makes it hard for people to value themselves. It's really important that young people in particular value themselves and are valued by society. The other big area of increased need is chronic disease. This has also become epidemic, with renal disease, diabetes and heart disease killing many people. There is a need for renal dialysis on more and more remote communities where the old people do not want to go into town for dialysis or for their knowledge to be lost to the future generations. Old people are watching their middle-aged and even younger children die. Indigenous life expectancy is increasing, but slower than for non-Indigenous people. Therefore, the gap in health status is widening, again related to our harsh political climate. So what I've learned. I believe that I now have a genuine understanding of what primary healthcare really is and the importance of providing holistic healthcare. I have much more refined non-clinical skills learnt from organising a women's business conference, writing background papers, reports, liaising with external agencies, organising meetings, etc., etc. I'm obviously a much more experienced doctor now than I was 14 years ago, with a much deeper understanding of Indigenous issues. But also, what I've learned outside holistic primary health care and Indigenous culture and people. One is a sense of spirituality, without which some sense of which life can be a pretty empty place. Western culture has in many ways lost this dimension on life. Breastfeeding. I didn't have any problems breastfeeding. Most Western women seem to, and although this is obviously multifactorial, I believe that the many, many of you Indigenous women that I have seen effortlessly breastfeeding over the years helped in this process. Unknown to you and to me, you'd become role models for me. You should be proud. This is another important thing that Western culture has lost.
Ahead of our next presentation that highlights the more recent phase of Danila Dilba, I'd like to again acknowledge the First Nations Broadcasting for their support in producing this short film as in-kind support. Here's a look at Danila Dilba in more recent years, including the COVID response.
I'm Carol Stanislaus, the chairperson of Danila Dilba Health Service. We've grown from one small clinic in the early days to now 9 clinics across the Palmerston and Darwin region, making sure we are easily accessible to our people. We've grown in terms of what we can provide to our people, and these include social and emotional wellbeing. We provide support to our mob with chronic illness, and we can link our clients to allied services.
Humpty Doo Clinic is a really good service for the rural community. It's their closest clinic they can access culturally appropriate health service, and they feel comfortable coming to the clinic. I chose to become an AHP to help my community and help my mob and to provide culturally appropriate services.
We are different because not only are we a health service for our mob in Darwin and Palmerston, but also because we provide a whole-of-life service for our clients, including our mob sleeping rough. Our health services look after our clients from birth to the later stages of their life and everything in between.
Our clients in the Bagot catchment feel safer coming to the Bagot clinic. They've built relationships over the years and feel comfortable coming into the clinic. It is important for our community to have people like me as an Indigenous outreach worker advocating, because they need that support with someone to talk for them.
I'm Emma Fitzsimons. I've been with Danila Dilba for just on 20 years now. What I love about this place is the connections that I can make with people in the communities, and at Palmerston we have such an amazing cross-section of the population. We see pregnant ladies and their newborn babies, all the way through to people who are really right at the end of their lives.
I've been a health practitioner for 14 years. I enjoy my work working with the doctors, of helping in closing the gap, and to be working for our people, for better life, for their lifestyles.
We are the starting point of change, for our people, and we're also not just a health service, we're here for the community and to help build our mob up. Our footprint is a lot larger than what it originally was. A lot of services rely on us. We help a lot of services, so we're growing bigger and bigger every year. So.
COVID has impacted the world and it's been no different here in Darwin. Our goal was to work with government to try and ensure that there were good policies and strategies in place to keep the virus out of the community. Since we've had a vaccination developed, our goal now is to try and get as many people vaccinated. We've done over 12,000 vaccinations across Darwin because the virus will get to Darwin. Hopefully the bulk of our community will be vaccinated. That's our target. But we also as an organisation need to be prepared and make sure that we've got good procedures in place so that we're managing any future risks as well. The services that we provide to community are the services that are going to improve the health and wellbeing of our community. Even though we've got a good footprint, we've got 9 clinics across the region, we've got more staff working with our community than ever, we've still got a lot of challenges. And so the focus for me is about better understanding those health issues that our communities are dealing with and finding ways in which we can start to address those so that, in 30 years' time, we no longer have the sorts of health inequality that we have today.
That is quite the footprint. All right, we'll now hear from Pat Turner, who is the CEO of the National Community Controlled Health Organisation and has a message to mark this occasion. After the video, we'll hear from the CEO of AMSANT, Mr. John Patterson, or Paddo as he's known in these parts, and with him, Lynette Fijo, representing her father, the late Reverend Wally Fijo, who designed the Danila Dilba logo. Let's now hear from Pat Turner.
Hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Pat Turner, the CEO of NACCHO, and also the lead convener of the Coalition of Peaks on Closing the Gap. But today, I'm talking to you because it's your 30th anniversary. Unbelievable. I want to congratulate everyone who's been involved in Danila Dilba over those past 30 years. What a long way you've come. I remember when our sisters, who are both now passed, regrettably and sadly, Sally and Barbie were working tirelessly to get the first clinic set up in Darwin. Of course, Barbie then became the #1 patient of Danila Dilba, and she promoted it and supported it throughout her short life. She was a very close friend of mine, and I miss her dearly. I want to congratulate Carol and her board, but especially Carol, for her tireless leadership of the board and the way that she has reformed the governance of Danila Dilba so that you now have all of the systems in place. As a community-controlled health service, our aim is to deliver comprehensive primary health care, which includes addressing the social determinants of health. Until we redress all of those issues for our people, we will not improve the quality of life for them. Carol, congratulations on reaching your 30th anniversary of Danila Dilba. I want to thank you personally from the bottom of my heart for the leadership you have shown and to where you have brought the organisation today. To Rob McPhee, you are a welcome addition as CEO of Danila Dilba, and you've been preceded by other really good CEOs, and especially the one who's just left us, Olga. I pay my utmost gratitude to Olga, and now to you, Rob. Olga left a good legacy for you, and with all of the systems reforms that she did in Danila Dilba, and she certainly made Danila Dilba a much more readily accessible organisation for our people in the greater Darwin region. I know you all developed many programs. I've been especially pleased with the programs that you've done in relation to extending the end life stage of those who are suffering with kidney disease. I know you've got successful working partnerships with nurses. I know that you've put new clinics at Danila Dilba, at Dondale, and at Humpty Doo, and at Malac, and at Palmerston, and in the city, and the men's clinics, and the outreach services, all of the things that you do. I know you'd like to do dental health, but unfortunately, the money hasn't been provided for that because it all goes to the territory government. Nevertheless, and also the partnerships that you build, the people that you work with in other organisations on a daily basis to get the best outcomes for our clients, all of that work is very important to make sure that our people get the best possible health care that is available to them. I want to thank you all for the untiring work that you do, and I also want to congratulate you on turning 30. You were modelled on the Redfern Aboriginal Medical Service that is now 50. So we've got these health services around the country that are doing a fantastic job, and you are no exception. So well done, Danila Dilba. Congratulations, all of the staff, all of the board, and all of the clients. So have a lovely evening, and I wish you every success in the next 30 years.
She's deadly good sister girl, proud Territorian, and we all love her. I'd like to acknowledge the Danila Dilba Health Service board, Carol, you and the team, board directors here that are with us tonight. To other distinguished guests, a lot of Darwin families here tonight, and it's what an evening, what a year, and I think it's just appropriate that and timely that we just come together and just have a nice evening with Danila Dilba directors, staff, and all the hard workers that are putting in the big yards in providing that very important primary healthcare service to our mob. We're celebrating many things tonight as we mark the 30th anniversary of the establishment of Danila Dilba, many of which we have described to you this evening. Since I started AMSANT, as you all know, I've used the term the AMSANT family. This has applied to both our staff as well as our members. It is a description that is important to all of us, indeed, are all part of a family whose dedication to Aboriginal health is paramount. A couple of years ago, AMSANT celebrated its 25th anniversary, which brings us to the question, if we are, as I believe, an AMSANT family, who brought this family into existence? The answer, of course, is the Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Services that brought us together for the first time, and while it was a bare 3 years into its existence, Danila Dilba was one of those organisations that brought AMSANT into being. Although Danila Dilba was, at that time, the last community-controlled health service to be established in a major territory town, it was a crucial player in establishing AMSANT. It was an advocate, an organiser and a proponent of our existence as a representative of all community-controlled health organisations in the Northern Territory. Along with much older and experienced town-based health services such as Congress, Anyangini, Welliwell and Jane, Danila Dilba embraced what has now developed into this AMSANT family, and this shall never be forgotten. The future of Aboriginal health and Aboriginal control was in crisis back then. Such little Aboriginal community control funding as existed then largely went through the hands of ATSIC, which had virtually no comprehension about health at all. Let's be honest, Aboriginal health funding was not just tiny, but under ATSIC was dispersed according to regional and state loyalties rather than genuine health needs. This is why, under the strong support from AMSANT and members such as Danila Dilba, and with strong support from Barbara Flick, who was then employed in Canberra by the AMA, the Australian Medical Association, and Pat Anderson from AMSANT, they wrested control of the funding from ATSIC. Despite opposition from the ATSIC board, and I was a commissioner at the time, between 93 and 96, our sector broke away from the chains of ATSIC. The money started to flow in significant amounts to our sector and to our services, such as Danila Dilba. Last year, Danila Dilba, under the fierce leadership of Olga Havnen, and in support of my sister, our sister Yolia, Helen Fijo Frith, good to see you, my sister, from the Bagot community, with support from myself at AMSANT, and Debdi Natali from the Northern Territory Council of Social Services, won a major victory over Grog. It was a victory over one of the top 20 largest corporations in Australia, that being Woolworths. It was over the proposal to establish the largest grog shop in Australia, right at our front door, in the neighbourhood of a number of Aboriginal communities along with informal camping grounds. It was a victory against the odds. A lot of commentators and observers saw it as David versus Goliath. And this happened because we backed the members of our AMSANT family, and that's where our power lies now and into the future. And this is where Danila Dilba comes in, again, as it links its day-to-day business with respect for the Larrakia people, the traditional owners of the land they work on. That in turn is reflected in the Danila Dilba logo. And before I finish, a quick tribute to Pat Anderson, legend advocate, Territorian woman who was a key player in the establishment of Danila Dilba as well as AMSANT. Just yesterday she announced she would be stepping down as chairperson of the Lowitch Institute. Her leadership across so many years in the field of Aboriginal health must be acknowledged this evening. So a big round of applause, I think, for Pat. Thank you, Pat, for your dedication and hard work. Now to finish, an obscure fact. I mentioned the pearl at the beginning. The pearl signifies a 30th Jubilee year. Maybe for us old Territorians that remember the classic Auntie Cathy and Mill Sisters song, The Arafura Pearl. It very much sums up a lot about life in Darwin. So let me tonight, on its 30th anniversary, name Danila Dilba Darwin's Arafura Pearl. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And I just want to recognise the artwork and Lynette and her dad, and may his artwork live on forever. And as Danila Dilba continues to grow and continue on for another 30 years. So that's the end of our formal speeches tonight. But we've still got a little bit to do, so don't go anywhere yet. But before we do, can I just take the time again to thank you all individually for your support here tonight. For those people who are not in the room, thank you again for the contribution you've made to where we are today. And for those people that have passed as well, I'd like to pay special recognition. This is the formal happy birthday component.
Happy 30th, Danila Dilba! Happy 30th, Danila Dilba! Happy 30th, Danila Dilba!
Happy 30th, Danila Dilba! Happy 30th, Danila Dilba!
Happy 30th, Danila Dilba! Happy 30th, Danila Dilba!
Happy 30th, Danila Dilba, and here's to many more 30s ahead.
Happy 30th birthday, Danila Dilba, and 30, many, many more.
Happy 30th, Danila Dilba. You rock. And then may the next 30 be even better. Thank you.
Hi, it's so exciting to be here again at the 30th anniversary now. I can remember the 20th anniversary dinner 10 years ago, and it's lovely to be here. Congratulations, Danila Dilba. Happy birthday.
On behalf of the Yamsan family, we wish to extend Danila Dilba a very happy 30th anniversary. Keep up the good work, keep strong, and keep our mob healthy.
I'd like to congratulate Danila Dilba Health Service for all the services that they've provided to our people, especially our Stolen Generations people, and congratulate them on 30 years of wonderful service to them all.
Happy 30th birthday, Danila Dilba, and congratulations.
Happy 30th birthday, Danila Dilba. It's amazing. How did we do it? And how have we come so far? Truly, truly wonderful. Congratulations.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Go.
Hey, look out.
There we go. Happy birthday.
Yay.
I'd like to just spend a bit of time now to acknowledge some really important people that make up Danila Dilba, and that's our staff. Our workforce over the 30 years has grown to now about 220 people. And our people that work for us are and have always been the lifeblood of the organisation. Without you, there is no service. Without you, our clinics don't open. And without you, we cannot provide our clients with amazing primary health care. We just simply can't do what we do without you. So the recipients for long service recognition for 10 plus years working with Danila Dilba are I'd like to invite two people up, and these employees who have been with Danila Dilba for 20 or more years. They are Dr. Justine Mayer and Dr. Emma Fitzsimmons. Okay, there's no secret to this one. Our final recipient for this evening is a monumental 30 years of service. So can I please ask Dr. Fiona to come up to the stage?